Mate Achira Matram Uchair Kolahalo Viramate Achira Matram Uchair Kolahalo Viramate Achira Matram Uchair Bringadipe Harikatam Iva Gayamane Brigandipe Harikatam Iva Gayagamne Bringadipe Harikatamiva Gayamane Dipe Harikatamiva Gaya Paravatanya Vrita Sarasa Chakravakam Datyuha Hamsa Sukati Tribarinam Yaham Kolahalo Viramate Achira Matram Uchair Bringadipe Harikatani Vagayamane Prabhuji's Varavatanya Paravadanya Tabrita Samsa Chakravaka Datyuha Hamsa Sukati Tribarinam Yam Kolalo Viramate Achira Matramuche Bringadipe Harikatami Vagayamane Kolahalo Vivramate Chiramatra Uchair Bringayate Katam Yamane Marji Paravatanya Brita Sarasa Chakravaka Varinam Sasukapitri Varinam Yaha Kolahalo Viramate Achira Matramuche Bringadipe Arika Paravata Pigeons, Anyabhrita, Cuckoo, Sarasa, Crane, Chakravaka, Datyuha, Galinul, Hamsa, Swan, Sukha, parrot, Titri, partridge, Barhinam, of the peacock, Ya, which, Kolahala, tumult, Viramate, stops, Achira matram, temporarily, Uchchaihi, loudly, Bringadipe, king of the bumblebees, Harikatam, the glories of the Lord, Eva, as, Gayamane, while singing. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. When the king of bees hum in high pitch, singing the glories of the Lord, there is a temporary lull in the noise of the pigeon, the cuckoo, the crane, the charvaka, the swan, the parrot, the partridge, and the peacock. Such transcendental birds stop their own singing simply to hear the glories of the Lord. Please repeat after me. When the king of the bees hums in a high pitch, singing the glories of the Lord, there is a temporary lull in the noise of the pigeon, the cuckoo, the crane, the chakravaka, the swan, the parrot, the partridge, and the peacock. Such transcendental birds stop their own singing simply to hear the glories of the Lord. Purport. This verse reveals the absolute nature of Vaikuntha. There is no difference between the birds there and the human residents. The situation in the spiritual sky is that everything is spiritual and variegated. Spiritual variegatedness means that everything is animate. There is nothing inanimate. Even the trees, the ground, the plants, the flower, the birds, and the beast are all on the level of Krishna consciousness. The special feature of Vaikuntha Loka is that there is no question of sense gratification. In the material world, even an ass enjoys his sound vibration. But in the Vaikunthas, such nice birds as the peacock, the chakravaka, and the cuckoo prefer to hear the vibration of the glories of the Lord from the bees. The principles of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting, are very prominent in the Vaikuntha world. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuddhapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishagan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Teshatarine Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha namo mahavadanyaya krishna prema pradayate krishnaya krishna chaitanya namine gauratise namaha He Krishna karuna sindhu dinabandhu jagatpate gopesha gopika kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tatta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudhe Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes to the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Tavivasmi, 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 Tavivina, iti vigya devitvam nayamam charanantikam. Hare Krishna everyone. Welcome to this morning's Bhagavatam class. The description of Kingdom of God. Beautiful chapter, beautiful verse. I guess this verse can be chanted in a better tune, but I don't know. There's a nice melodious tune this particular verse is chanted because it's in a different meter than the usual ones. So here, the spiritual planet is described in these verses. This is the pretext when Jayavan Vijay gets cursed, or the four Kumaras in their transcendental journey. They're visiting various planetary systems, and they're also visiting Vaikuntha Loka. And while they are visiting the Vaikuntha Loka, the features of Vaikuntha are described. One of the key features described here is variegatedness, variety. The material world, what we live in, is actually not variegated. Even though we see various forms and shapes and colors, it's actually not variegated. It is pretty much made up of the 5 elements. Bhumi, Apo, Nalo, Vayu. So everything what we see is made out of this dead material. Of course, the spirit soul is hidden within this dead material. But externally, everything we see is actually not variegated. It's just made of earth, water, ether, fire, and what's the other one? Air. So all this put together is, different forms are generated. But spiritual world, on the other hand, it's full of variegatedness. It's not made up of just mundane elements like the Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu. Generally, the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, or the Sunyavadis, their understanding is the variegatedness is within this material world. There is this nominal world where there's a lot of variegatedness, but in Nirvana stage, everything is one. There is no difference. Everything is just one. Somebody close the door, please. Which is, we can see here how incorrect they are. Their concept of taking what is variegated and what is not variegated is completely different to the Vedic understanding. The Vedic understanding, or the spiritual understanding, the real spiritual understanding is that this material world is not variegated. It's made up of only 5 elements. But the spiritual world is it's many variegated features, varieties. There's varieties of stuff. And these varieties also not temporary, they are also permanent. And they are not mundane, made of 5 elements. So the concept of Mayavadis and impersonalists is completely wrong to what in essence is. And their aspiration to become one at the end is so misleading, or so incorrect, so misleading. So that's why Prabhupada, himself, in his own pranam mantra, when he gave himself the pranam mantra, he calls himself Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashyatya Teshatarane. So Nirvishesha means, Vishesha means variegatedness. Vishesha means variegatedness. So spiritual world is variegated, and material world is Nirvishesha. But the Mayavadis, the Western philosophers, the entire Paschatya Desh, the whole Western ideologies, is all considering that spiritual world is nirvisesha. Spiritual world is nirvisesha, or the liberation is nirvisesha. So Prabhupada destroys that concept by his strong purports and describing the spiritual world. And that's why we glorify him by the pranamantra nirvisesha and shunyavadi, pashyate teshu tarane. So here, there's birds, different birds are explained. Some of the birds, like Chakravaka, I don't think so there's an English translation for that. We don't know what that bird means in English. So it's just a Sanskrit bird. I don't know if the birds still exist. So Chakravaka, there's many lovely birds are mentioned. Pigeons, cuckoos, cranes, Chakravakas, Datyuhas, Hamsas, and Shukas, and Titris. Some of them we know, like parrot Sukha we know. Sukadeva Goswami is a parrot, form of a parrot, or he's Radharani's parrots. So Sukha. Then Barhinam, when we sing the morning prayers, Venum Kvanantamaram in the Dalaya Taksham, Barhavatam. So Barhavatam, Krishna is, anyone knows what Barhavatam means? Peacock, thank you. He is decorated with a peacock feather. He's decorated with a peacock feather in his forehead. So Barhavatam. Similar. So here, the Barhinam, the peacock, is used. And Hamsa, Manasa Hamsa, the mind of the swan rests in your lotus feet by Kulashekar, King Kulashekar. So the swan, Hamsa means swan, pigeons and cuckoos. So various variegatedness are mentioned, various different birds and beasts are mentioned. And these birds and animals, the planet of Goloka or Vaikuntha, are not made of earth, water, ether, fire, and air. It's made of the building blocks of the spiritual planet is Chit potency. Chit potency. Here, the material world, the building block is Maya, illusion energy of the Lord. But in the spiritual world, the spiritual kingdom is made of the Chit potency of the Lord. So the Chit potency's building block is Chintamani. Chintamani is a building block. So here, every matter you take, you break it down, and then it becomes what the lowest dominating factor is what? Atom. Atom. Somebody even breaks it down to electrons and neurons and whatever. But we'll just take it for atom. So atoms make the building block of this material world, even according to scientific understanding. But in spiritual world, that building block is Chintamani stone. Chintamani stone means wish-fulfilling stone. In the description of the Brahma Samhita, Chintamani Prakrasadma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshavriteshu Suravira Vipalayantam. So in that verse, Bhaktisiddhanta describes Chintamani stone as, of course, it's not an ordinary mundane stone. Even within the ordinary stones, there's something called a philosopher's stone. Anybody heard of philosopher's stone? No, Bhaktisiddhanta talks about it. So this, I don't know about it. I haven't heard about it, but he talks about it. So philosopher's stone is a wish-fulfilling stone, which will fulfill if anybody has any desire, material desire. It fulfills, somebody wants something material. This philosopher's stone can provide you that. This philosopher's stone can provide you with wealth. And it can provide you with piety. But this philosopher's stone is still limited to only the material realm. What it can provide is material wealth. It can provide material piety, which is material happiness. But it's not spiritual. The results provided by a philosopher's stone is not spiritual. But the Chintamani stone, which is the building block of the of the spiritual planets, is even superior to Philosopher's Stone, because Chintamani is wish fulfilling in one sense that it can give devotion to the Lord. Philosopher's Stone can't give devotion to the Lord, but Chintamani can provide devotion to the Lord. That's a real happiness one can achieve. Any material benefits, like Prahlad Maharaj says, any material benefits obtained in this material world, it's merely punarcharvita charvananam, chewing the chewed. Whatever material benefits attained is only we attain that in millions of lives. We have tasted it, so it's nothing new. So, in that sense, what is awarded by a Philosopher's Stone is not great. In the sense, it's been punarcharvita charvananam, and when this material body finishes, what are the benefits obtained through wealth and piety is also gone. You can't really enjoy because you don't have the body to enjoy. But Chintamani, on the other hand, which is a building block of the spiritual planet, it's different. Similarly, the Surabhi cow or the Kalpavriksha tree in the spiritual world is different from even the Surabhi cows or Kalpavriksha trees mentioned in material platform. The Kamadevanu cow can provide you all kinds of foodstuff. Similarly, Kalpavriksha tree can provide you, all kind of fruits and any eatable you want, it can provide. But again, provided by Surabhi cow within the material world and Kalpavriksha trees within the material world, it's still material. But in the spiritual world, the trees, the Kalpavriksha trees present there, they provide the fruit of devotion, the mellows, the ripened fruit of devotion is that's a fruit it provides. So that's a fruit which gives a real happiness to the soul, not the mundane fruit. The mundane fruit might give a temporary happiness. You may get a nice mango in a good season and you can eat it, and after eating, that's it. The taste doesn't prolong. Or if you want to prolong the taste, you might eat 10 mangoes, but after that you kind of get distasteful. The mango, you don't want to taste anymore. You're like, oh, I don't want the mango. Or if you persist eating, you might get sick. You might not really able to enjoy. But the fruit given by the Kalpavriksha trees in the spiritual world is a matured fruit of devotion. And that matured fruit of devotion is ever satisfying. One never gets bored in that, tasting that fruit. And similarly, the Kamadevanu cows, the Kamadevanu cows here, give various offerings, material offerings. But in spiritual world, it gives the milk of devotion towards Krishna. So the spiritual world and its variegatedness is the real variegatedness, and the offerings there are actually offering which gives us devotion or which brings us close to Krishna. And Prabhupada says here, there is no sense gratification in spiritual world, in material world. What is that sense gratification? Sense gratification means enjoying independent of Krishna. One never wishes to enjoy independent of Krishna. Here, any opulences we have, we want to enjoy ourselves. Or we might enjoy it with our extended family and friends, people who you know. Or you might go out a little bit more and do a bit of charity. But the enjoyment is much more self-centric. Because it's based on our sense or mental speculation. But the spiritual enjoyment or the happiness in the spiritual world, there is no question, as Prabhupada says, there is no question of sense gratification, because everything and everyone is busy satisfying the sense of Krishna or Rishikesha, the master of all the senses in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna addresses him, or Sanjaya addresses him as master of the senses, Rishikesha. So Krishna is the master of the senses. So everyone there in the spiritual world is busy satisfying the senses of Krishna and not their own senses. And since it is their natural disposition, being in a position where they can satisfy the senses of Krishna, they are happy. They are enjoying unlimited happiness. Here we are trying to enjoy our senses, but our senses are dormant. The more you enjoy, it actually becomes more painful. The more, if you want to eat something, you can eat only a little bit. If you want to enjoy, sex in the material world, you can't have constant sex. Your body will give up. So the enjoyment in this material world is temporary, and the result of that enjoyment is actually not pleasure. Only during the phase of enjoyment you might experience a little bit of pleasure, but after that, post-enjoyment is only suffering. The consequences is only suffering. But in the spiritual world, the activity of satisfying Krishna's senses is pleasureful, and all the outcome of it is also very pleasureful. So that's why it's ananda. There is always constant bliss in a spiritual world. And here we could see the birds and the bees are not competing. There's no competition. There's no envy per se. In material world, it's all, even some of the devotional service we perform might have a bit of envy attached to it. You want to do something because somebody is doing better. There's a bit of an element of envy. Somebody is singing better, so I'm a bit envious of them, so I want to try to sing better. So we might be tinged with envy. There may not be a pure reason for our devotional service or any activities we perform. Even to some extent to devotional service, any mundane activity we perform, it's driven by envy, because the living entities, because of the envious nature towards Krishna, are put in this material world. So everybody in this material world, one dominating factor they have is that we are all envious. That's the reason we are here. If you go to a jail, there's one common factor. Everybody has done something criminal. That's why they're all in a confinement. And of course, you ask them, they will say, "Oh no, I didn't do anything wrong." But we say, "Oh, we are not envious." But we are envious. That's why we are here. The reason we are here, because we are envious. Unless you are a pure devotee, who is nirmat saranam satam, 100% pure in his heart. But that's very rare, very, very rare. But generally, everybody, what we see, you, me, maybe not you guys, but me, we are all very envious in nature. Envious in nature. Because that roots from the envy what we had towards Krishna. And so we've been put here in this material world. So every activity we perform in the mundane platform is tinged with, the root cause is envy. You want to make money. There's an element of envy in there. It's the root cause. When you dig into it, when you analyze it, when you psychoanalyze it, there's envy. You're thinking, "Oh, the neighbor had more money, so I want to have more money." If you want to study something, you want to get a career. The motivation is, it's a very famous thing with Indian parents. They always say, "Oh, look at that particular son. He has scored so much. He is going to get into medical school. You I don't know why you came and took birth to me. You're useless, You're not studying like the neighbor's son. So there's always, even when the parents chastise, it's based on envy. It's not like they are saying, you have to study for, I don't know, whatever, so that you can become Krishna conscious or you can make money and serve the Lord. No, they're not saying that. Their whole idea is envy, based on envy. It's rooting from envy. So every activity, one might even go and study nicely, and the object is so you want to make money or wealth so that you can be happy. And happiness is always, in this material world, is always the height of unhappiness in this material world is always compared to somebody else's. The happiness in this material world or achievement in this material world is never independent. It is always in comparison with somebody else. You are the richest man in the world compared to somebody else. It's not like you're the richest man in the world. That's the definition, and that's the that doesn't define you. The definition of you being richest man is you have more money or more dollars than the guy next to you. That's how even the richest man is defined. Similarly, the happiness, is defined. We say, like say, if you're in a third world country, like when I grew up in India, it was a third world country, and now things are different now. When I grew up, it was a poor country. And the idea of happiness is looking at the Western world, comparing with the Western world, the advancement in material opulences and the happiness derived from the advancement in material happiness. That's what you compare to your happiness or your lack of happiness. You're thinking, if I'm in America or if I'm in Australia, there's better material opulences, so I can be happy. So it's always a comparative study of your happiness. And as soon as there is comparison, that comparison roots from envy. So every activity we, in this material world, we do, it's all based on that envy. The third world country is envious of the first world country, and if you're in the first world country, people are thinking, Bangladesh people, I hear the people in Bangladesh are very happy. Okay, because they got nothing, they lives in rags and complete. But the study, apparently some study says the people in Bangladesh are very happy. It's a very poor country. I don't know Bangladesh now, but the Bangladesh I knew after the war and all, a very poor country. Anybody from Bangladesh here? No? Okay. I used to live very close to Bangladesh, so there's a lot of economic migrants coming from Bangladesh, crossing the border to West Bengal. It's not like West Bengal is a glorious, it's not. But you can see people thinking that West Bengal is a better place to live than Bangladesh. So you can see, but people in the West are there thinking, having no opulence, having a simple life is, people in Bangladesh or, there's some study, it's very commonly known study, where in the Western world, the idea is people in Bangladesh are happy. So this happiness, this mundane measurement of happiness is completely deluded, and it's completely based on envy, that what I can't have or what other have. So that's how this world works. First we saw this world is the building blocks of this world is the 5 dead elements, and then we saw even the glorious articles like the Philosopher's Stone or Kamadhenu tree or Kamadhenu cow and Kalpavriksha tree in this material world. Still, they are not. They don't give any real happiness. And whatever happiness we have or think we have is also rooted with envy. So that's a predicament of this material world. But in the spiritual world, there is no envy, because that's a qualification to be in the spiritual world. And the qualification to be in the material world is that you are envious. So And the opposite, the flip side of it in the spiritual world is every living entity is non-envious. Their only goal is to make Krishna happy, to make Krishna's senses happy. So they're all, if at all there's any competition, that competition is based on satisfying Krishna. And one of the ways you easily satisfy Krishna is by glorifying Him. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Staranam, even though chronologically based, these 9 types of bhakti, Shravanam is the first one, and it is important one. Glorification. Everyone in the spiritual world is trying to glorify Krishna. And that is our process too, by Shravanam and Kirtanam. We always try to hear the glories of Krishna, by hearing the holy name, by hearing Bhagavatam, the glorification. Our heart gets purified, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. And purified of what? Purified of the envy. What we have accumulated, or because of that we have ended up here. It purifies that envy gradually. By this Cheto Darpana Marjanam glorification process, we could see the Lord. And it gives you the opportunity to see the Lord. And once you see the Lord, it gives you the opportunity to appreciate the qualities of the Lord. And this process, by appreciating the qualities of the Lord, one gets an opportunity to appreciate the associates of the Lord. And they're all serving, and we can also take part, assist them in serving the Lord. So that is how the spiritual world works. So here, when the bee, which is very tiny, little bumblebee is a very tiny living entity compared to a parrot or a cuckoo or the Chakravaka birds, which I don't know what they are, peacocks. So compared to, in physical sense, compared to these birds, bumblebee is tiny. And also, the noise made by the bumblebee compared to a cuckoo or a parrot is insignificant. Because a cuckoo can actually sing in a very melodious voice. As a child, I've heard cuckoos singing. Nowadays, it doesn't exist. I don't know if there is any cuckoos singing. There's cuckoos in Australia, Michael? You don't know. But in the cuckoos, sorry, what? Okay, so they do come here sometimes. Okay. But back in India, you actually, not anymore, after urbanization, I heard cuckoos sing. They're very melodious. They call the nightingale, they sing very melodiously, cuckoo. Peacock is not that melodious, but cuckoos are very melodious. Parrots, they chirp. They make all this beautiful sound. And they are in the spiritual world glorifying the spiritual law, Krishna. So they are glorifying with this Uttama Shloka, beautiful verses, with their beautiful voices. Even in a mundane sense, if somebody has a really good voice, they're singing, they say, oh, you have a voice of a cuckoo. You can sing like a cuckoo. So imagine, spiritual world, the cuckoo is singing the most appropriate song, the Uttama Shloka. It's not singing the mundane song of the hero and the heroine. It's singing the glories of Krishna, Radha and Krishna. So imagine how beautiful the whole combination of the voice and the combination of the Uttama Shloka, the beautiful verses, it's quite amazing. But in spite of that, when these cuckoos don't take pride, they're not thinking, oh, my singing is better, so why should I shut up when a bumblebee is trying to sing, when a bumblebee is singing? But no, it's the other way around. It's encouraged. The cuckoos actually pause here, as we see, the cuckoos pause for a bit, so that the songs of the bumblebee can be heard. So every living entity is encouraging each other to perform devotional service without envy, without material competition. And it's all geared towards glorifying the Lord and trying to please Him. That is the motive. So that's a difference between spiritual world and material world. And when the whole thing is geared towards pleasing Krishna, there is no anxiety, because you're not competing to prove yourself with somebody else. So there's no anxiety. There's no hankering in the spiritual world. Here there is hankering. There's anxiety, lamentation, and hankering. Here we're always hankering because we are envious and we want to compete with somebody else. We are hankering to achieve something. We are always hankering. I want. You buy, you buy a house and you are hankering to buy another house. You buy a car, then you are hankering to buy a better car. You make money, you are hankering to make more money. So there's constant hankering. And there's also lamentation, because the things what you hankered and bought doesn't last. You might buy a really nice car, and after some time it breaks down. So it gives you lamentation. So there's constant hankering in this material world. But in the spiritual world, there is no, the only, if at all the hankering is to serve Krishna. And there's unlimited opportunities to do that. Say, for example, if I have a desire, to feed somebody here, I want to cook a lot of nice prasadam and feed somebody. I cook a lot of preparation, but if I want to feed somebody, they can eat only a limited amount, what they can consume. So even your service offering to an individual is limited. Even though if you want to do, I want to, make 100 rasgullas and mishti doi, a big pot of yogurt, sweetened yogurt. But the person who is enjoying in the material world can have only what he can have. It is limited. But in spiritual world, there's unlimited opportunity to serve, and Krishna is unlimited to accept all the service offering. Krishna is not tired after eating 100 rasagullas. He doesn't get sick. If you have the desire to please Krishna, there's unlimited opportunity. Even in the Prakata Leela, when Krishna appears, or the whole Madhavendra Puri pastime, when Govardhan manifests, and Aniyor, bring me more, bring me more. You can feed the whole village, preparation cooked by the whole village. Again, not Indian village preparation is large. Here you go. It's just a little bit given in a nicely wrapped, like airplane food. That's like. But traditionally, when they cook feast, even now you go to in Vrindavan, they have something called a bandar. Anybody have eaten bandar in Vrindavan? The sadhus, one sadhu invites all the sadhus of Vrindavan and feed. Their pots are huge. It's not like they serve you with you take a bucket and they serve you, and the next time you have to wait for half an hour for somebody to come, or you might not get any more. It's not like that here. It's huge amount of preparation is prepared, and and served. So similarly, what is that in Madhavendra Puri's pastime? The whole village. So imagine they were competing against each other and bringing more and more offerings. The amount of offerings they brought in carts, in bullock carts. They can't just bring in a plate. Here we go to somebody's house, we bring a plate. No, they brought a bullock cart full of stuff. And Krishna ate them all. Ate them all. And he wanted more. And he ate them all, and he again manifested them as prasadam so that people can eat. So, in the spiritual world, there's opportunity for us to serve in large quantities or immensely. And also Krishna is not tired in accepting the service. He can accept unlimited offerings. So the joy is constant. The joy is always constant. It's like feeding a fire. You can keep throwing oil and the fire becomes more and more. So you can keep doing devotional service to Krishna and it's enriching us, and Krishna is reciprocating. He's constantly reciprocating. So there is no anxiety. There's no anxiety that the stuff, the paneer sabji I have or the paneer I'm cooking is going to run out. They can keep cooking. And there's no anxiety that Krishna is going to say, oh, no, I can't eat anymore. There's no that anxiety. They can cook as much as they want and Krishna can eat as much as he wants. Or, whatever. The birds can sing as much as he wants and Krishna can listen always. There is no check. So, in that sense, spiritual world, there is no lamentation or there is no hankering compared to what we have in this material world. So that's the description of a kingdom of God, to my understanding, a little bit. We'll stop there. If you have any questions or comments, yes, please.
How do we perceive the concept of everything in the material world is a manifestation or derived from the five elements you were mentioning earlier: Bhuma, Apa, Annalo, Vayu, Khandano.
Buddhi revacha ahankara, vimudatma. How do we see? Well, you will.
When a jiva is destroyed, we can see that. It actually gets to mix with the earth.
Not the jiva. The jiva doesn't get mixed with the earth. Jiva is part of Krishna, so he is not made of bhumi, rapo, nalo, vayu. The material body, which is covered, is made of bhumi, rapo, nalo, vayu. How do you see it? You said it. When the jiva leaves the body, have you buried anyone? Like funeral, been to funeral homes or anything?
That's easy to understand. Manifesting.
How it manifests, how it comes together and manifests. How it comes together.
Destroyed, we can see.
Well, by reverse engineer it. How do you know a car is made up of parts? A car is not a homogeneous one thing. It's made of parts. So when you take up the parts, you can see that it can be put together into a car. Similarly, you reverse engineer. You see, when a body dies, it's fragmented, it's broken down, and it disappears into the five elements. So you reverse engineer it. It has to have fire to disappear into fire. It has to have earth to disappear into earth. It has to have air to disappear into air. So it's a logical conference that you reverse engineer it and you see that everything is made up of five elements. Rice. Where does the rice come from? Rice comes from earth. It manifests from earth. Yeah? And we eat that. And so that body is built by eating grains or rice. If you're from India, South India, you rice, and maybe if you're from North, maybe chapatis. But still, from earth comes the grains. From the grains, this body is built. So from earth, this body manifests. And the rice needs water to grow. And without water, the rice doesn't grow. So you invest water for the grain to grow. So it means the grain has water. And similarly, the grain needs oxygen. Or what the grain needs carbon dioxide, not oxygen. We need oxygen. So it requires carbon dioxide to grow. So carbon dioxide is invested into the grain. So you can see the fire, the sun provides the heat. Fire. So all these are invested in a grain, and that's the grain which builds this body. So it's transformation of the same elements from all these 5 elements is what forms a grain, and it gets, when we consume it, it's transformed into the physical body, and when we die, it gets dispersed into the 5 elements back into the nature. So you can see the whole life cycle of how material elements are coming from the 5 elements and get dispersed into 5 elements. Do that make sense? Okay.
And as Prabhupada mentioned that in spiritual world everything is animate, like in Vaikuntha. Does it mean that even a rock, like a piece of wood,
Yeah. Everything is full of life. There's nothing called a dead matter in spiritual world. And animate in the sense everything in the spiritual world is trying to, or is not trying to, is satisfying Krishna. And Krishna reciprocates. So to reciprocate, you need to be a person to be reciprocated. You step on a rock, the rock doesn't reciprocate. But in spiritual world, the rock is trying to please Krishna, and Krishna reciprocates to the rock. So it's an animate relationship there. Of course, I don't know the technicalities because I haven't been there for a long time. So we can see from the mechanics of reciprocation, there is life. When there is life, it's animate. I can't fall in love with this mic and expect the mic to fall in love with me because it's a dead matter. But in spiritual world, every entity is in love with Krishna, and Krishna is equally back in love with them, and they are reciprocating. They could be in Shanta Rasa. There's various rasas. So a stone or a tree, they could be based in Shanta Rasa. So in Shanta Rasa, the manifestation is limited. In other rasas, the manifestation of loving exchange is much more vibrant, but in Shantarasa it's much more limited. But still, it's not a dead matter. Krishna is not dealing with dead matter. It's still animate, full of life and bliss and happiness. Okay?
That is mean that the jivas from this material world who are in Shantarasa and they get liberated, they get to become, for example, like a rock.
Yeah. And the grass and the trees, they all, my understanding is they all fall under Shantarasa. And again, the spiritual world, there is no distinction. It's not like you should be dancing with Krishna in the midnight as a gopi, only then you are special. If you're a rock, you're not special. There's no distinction there. The distinction is only in material world. But in there, it's all, everybody's purpose is to serve Krishna, and they're absolutely happy in serving from their position. If I tell you should just come and clean the temple for rest of your life, You might say, "No, I want to do it in my early stages, and afterward I want to do some other better service." But in spiritual world, it doesn't work like. I mean, they don't care. They're just happy cleaning the temple, or being a rock, or dancing with Krishna at night. They're happy in doing that service for Krishna, and Krishna also reciprocates. Of course, in higher rasas, the exchange is much more intimate, and there's much more exchange between the offerer and Krishna. So, anyway, we don't want to get too much into rasa. Marji, you had a question?
I was just interested in this these poems in Heritage. Singing Glorious Below, normally when we hum there's no words in there, but here the bees are humming and the humming is describing the
Yeah.
Anything comment on that?
No.
It's a spiritual
The bumblebees they're mentioned. Even Krishna is sometimes compared to a bumblebee. I was talking to Bhanu Maharaj once, and he said, I was just talking, we were taking a walk in Manly or something, and I saw some butterflies, and we said, we were just having a conversation, and Maharaj said, there is no reference of butterflies in spiritual world. And you don't see any scriptures as description of butterflies, but there's description of a bumblebee, there is description of dragonfly. You know what a dragonfly is? Yeah. It looks like a chopper. So there's, and bumblebee, there's a lot of description about bumblebee because bumblebee gets attracted to the honey in wild flowers, and Krishna is always wearing a garland of wild flowers. And so the gopis send messages, or they have prayers to the bumblebee. I think it's in Gopi Gita it comes in. Am I right? Where they are praying to the bumblebee, because bumblebee is always, Krishna allows bumblebees to be close to him to smell his garlands. So they're quite special, and there are a lot of pastimes related to bumblebees. So bumblebees are quite special in spiritual realm. And also, bumblebees they're not like houseflies, chasing garbage. They go after nectar. And the nectar, Krishna is the nectar or the flower, so his paraphernalia is the tulsi leaves in his lotus feet. That's the nectar the bumblebee is actually interested in. They're not interested in mundane housefly stuff. So bumblebee is kind of glorified in the scriptures. And again, since everything have an opportunity, they have the potency to glorify Krishna, bumblebee is also singing the glories of the Lord. I guess in the previous verse it says, Madhu, Lavandatani, what is it? No. Fragrant, the flowers, it just says the flowers, Madhavi flowers are laden with honey. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah.
Just a comment for you. Prabhu also he was asking about the root. Can the root be personality in the spiritual world?
Yeah.
Flute is a good example.
Yeah. That's very nice.